So in this video I'm gonna try to explain the rounding issue. I decided to make this video so you all can have a complete picture of what the issue is. I already explained this, or we have been talking about this for a long time now, and I explained this to RIV I think 3 months ago with Dan, but I just explained him the USD, the problem we are having with the USD, which is the one that we're still having. And so I'm gonna start with explaining what I just wrote here. It's what I think it will be the best step to take to explain the issue with MXN and USD. So first of all, I'm gonna explain the columns, these 4 columns, which are the important for the rounding issue. Then I would change the USD currency to 8 decimals. I have been playing with this fields of configuration inside of ITWO, moving from 8 to 2 and then to 4, and then changing another configuration, which is like for example in the customer settings, in the currency at the project level. Those are the fields that I am aware they exist to change how the rounding is behaves. One solution RIV was proposing is to set 8 decimals so the difference between the cost and the total amount will shrink, and it does, but not in the way we need it. So I'm gonna explain that in this step. Then I will move to a project. I'm gonna be using the same project both in MXN and USD to explain the difference. And I'm gonna show you the unit of rate report, which is one of the most important reports because they are used to procure, and they are used sometimes to deliver to the client along with the estimate. Then inside of it, I'm gonna also add the indirect to the project and explain why we are missing the direct job cost here. Then I'm gonna show you the same project, just the estimates hit on USD, and we'll see how different it is from the MXN. And this is the project that we are having the more problems with when the estimate is set in USD. Then I'm gonna explain in an Excel the HY expectation, the way it's right now in ITWO versus the way we need it. Finally, we're gonna go to the conclusions and then the suggested solutions. So let's start with the first one, explain the columns. I'm gonna be using ITWO on the left side and the calculator on the right side, so we can do right away the math here. The columns I will explain are those 4. I'll be using this project. This is the MXN, which only has 2 line items, because I think it will be easier to see the cost and the total amount here. There are 2 kinds of line items. The one that just have MXN values, as we can see here, and the one that has the mix. So I'm gonna explain this column. The cost per unit is the sum of all of the commodities, assemblies, and cost code each line item has. The unit of rate is the same one as the cost per unit, with the difference that when we set any allowance, this column will reflect that. The cost per unit should stay the same because it's a cost that we will procure, but the unit rate is the one that we will sell to the client. And these 2 are just the result of multiplying the quantity for each of these. So the cost is related with the cost per unit, and the total amount is related with the unit rate. So when this project is set to, there is no indirect, no allowance yet. So these 2 columns, should be the same as well as these 2 columns. But we can see that that is not the case. In the first line item, they are the same, the cost per unit and the unit rate are the same, but in the second one, which is the one that we have USD, we can see we have USD here, are not the same. There is a small difference, and is where we can start seeing the rounding issue. And even though apparently these 2 has the same value, the cost and the total amount are different. And so there is a small difference between these two numbers, which is in the allowance. There is just this value, but then the second one we can see there's a big one. So which one of these two is the correct number? And when I mean the correct number is not the one that ITWO is giving us, because I know it is using 8 decimal behind the scenes to be more exact. But what I meant with the correct is the one that the client will see and the estimators will see, which is just multiplying this number by the quantity. And we will see is the total amount one. So this cost is using 8 decimals, and this total amount is using just 2. That's why we are getting this number. So the client and the estimators will see this number as the right number, as the correct number. But it doesn't happen with the USD. When I multiply this by the quantity again, the second one, it is not the case. So when the client or the estimator see this, like neither of those will get me neither of those two numbers, it is hard to believe that the software is doing the right math behind the scenes. So as you can see, we are just having the problem with the item that had USD on it. We don't have that problem on here. We just have the problem that the cost is not the same as the total amount here. By playing with the configuration and the currency, I was able to shrink this difference by changing the decimals that the USD currency use. So that is going to be the second step, change USD currency to a decimal, so we can see this difference will shrink. So currency and over here 8 decimals. So if I go back to the estimate and refresh, now we can see these two are the same, and the allowance is way lower, which is good because we are looking for these two columns to be exactly the same. We also can see here that nothing has changed with this line item. It's still the same values before changing the currency of USD. It's just this line item, the one that was changed. So we can take a look again and see if now it's giving me the right number here. And it is not. Before we go over and change the MXN to also use 8 decimals, I want to show you the places where I'm aware the decimal places can be changed. And one is the currency over here, the one that I just showed you over here too. The other one is at the project level. This is in the setting rounding estimate over here, and the last one it's in the customer inquiry settings and over here. So those are the places I'm aware we can play with this number and see different results on the estimate. So now we can go to the next step, which is explain why setting MXN currency to a decimal is not a good idea. So as we have seen so far here, this is not the project, over here this line item is giving me the right number here and this is not. So the next step will be change 8 decimals over here and the allowance will shrink even more. As you can see here, it's just -2. But the problem here is, even though now they are both the same, this is not the right number I'm expecting. Remember, if I use the calculator again, and multiply by the quantity, I'm gonna get a different number, and neither of these two numbers are this one, and this is the one that estimator will need to see. To recap what I just talked about, I'm gonna go to this cell document and just expand it, and we can see all the scenarios we just went over. The first one is with the MXN and USD are set to 2 decimals, and we can see I'm gonna take the total amount because it's the one that it's giving me right numbers sometimes, and the MXN. So we saw that in the first line item it was giving me the right number, whereas in the second one it wasn't, due to the rounding in the USD. When we set, but it was a big difference here. When we set USD to be 8 decimals, that allowance is ranked to this number, and it was giving me still the right number here, but not the right on the second one due to the rounding issue. So when we set both to 8 decimals, which is in the second one, the 8 decimals, the MXN, the allowance is wrong even more, but now all the two of them were not giving me the right number, because instead of this column getting as close as this one, it wasn't the other way around. The total amount got close to the cost, as we can see here. So I'm gonna stick with this configuration for the rest of the video to show you in the MXN and the reports. So I'm gonna change it back to decimals here. So it was the way it was before. Now we are on the 5th step, which is the project in MXN. It's the one that we are already using. And I'm gonna show you the unit of rate report. To avoid having to export the data to the data warehouse and then print the reports, I just print out already and put it here in Excel, so we can take a look here. Basically, what the unit of rate report is a print of the line items, which is the two that we were seeing on the project, with all the details over here and all the quantities and the cost. So procurement might use this to do the subcontractor packaging, and some clients even ask for this. So I'm gonna start explaining the first one, which is the MXN, and the one that we don't have any problem with. You can see this is the quantity and the cost, and then we have the total cost, the total amount one. So if I add this extra column, which is the calculation with Excel, which will be the same as the calculator. So there is no difference here. It's okay. And if I use the same calculation over here, I'm gonna see there's just a small difference over here, but I managed to remove them from the report by just, instead of doing the math here, I just force this to take the values that are in the estimate detail over here. So these values are the ones that are here, but not necessarily are the sum of all these line items, all these lines. So there is no problem with the first one, which is the difference, it's 0. But in the second one, as we can see, if I do the math with the Excel, I'm gonna get a completely different number, which is 200 pesos of difference, just because of the rounding. So how come I'm gonna explain to the client that there is a 2,000 pesos difference due to rounding, if we are just seeing all the details that this line item has over here? So it's like if I do the math and if he does the math in the calculator, you will see like there is 2,000 out of nowhere. Alright, going back to the document, the next step will be add the indirect and explain missing direct job cost. So let me go over here. At this point where we haven't set any indirect yet, we could take the total amount column, which is the closest thing to the right values we can get, and just rename it to the cost. So we could use this as the cost of the project. But what is gonna happen when we set the indirect is that this column will be overwritten and we will lose track of the cost here. So that's why I'm saying when we set the indirect, we're gonna lose this. So let me do it then. I'm at the estimate now, and this is without the indirect now. So take a look at the total amount column, the one that I just said we could use it at the direct job cost. But as soon as I activate the indirect again, so F5, and then hide this again so we can see the cost again here. 5. So now the project is with the 10% of indirect. The unit of rate, as you can see, has changed because it's now carrying the indirect, and the cost per unit is without the indirect. So if I use the calculator again just to check whether that's okay, 1.1, it's gonna give me 10%, which is correct, and the same thing for the second one, and they are both okay. So these two columns are okay, but let me try with this two more. Unit of rate multiplied by the quantity to see if we're still getting the right value, and then we are just getting the right value on the first line item, and in the second one we're still having the problem, which is giving me another number, and this is due to the rounding with the USD. And at this point we have lost the real cost of the project because this is not the real cost, and this is with the indirect. So if I take this and multiply it again by the quantity, I'm gonna get the value I used to have in the total amount. That's what I say we're missing the direct job cost here. So let's go back to the document, and the next step will be the project in the USD. So let's go to ITWO, and this is the MXN, and this is the USD. As you can see, it's the same project, exactly the same project, just an USD, and this is an MXN. So let's see if this project behaves the same way as the MXN. As you remember, the first line item was giving me the right number here on the total amount. If I multiply here by the quantity, I'm gonna see now that this line item, the one that it used to give me the right number, is not. It's also due to the rounding issue here with the USD, and I believe it's because now if I click on this line item, I'm seeing that some of them are in USD, even though I didn't change anything of the assemblies. This is an assembly, and all the assemblies are in USD. If I go back here, you can see there is no assembly in USD. And if I click here and go to the assembly catalog, I'm gonna see that even though it says in USD, here it's in MXN, which is the correct, because I set this to be in MXN, but I'm not able to change this. So it's like it's attached to the currency of the estimate here. So let me try with the next one just to see if this is gonna work. So no, it's not. It's giving me a completely different number. And let me try with the cost again for the first one. And as you can see, neither of these two columns is giving me this. At least with the project set to MXN, this line item, I was sure that all the line items that didn't have any USD would get me the right number. But now, with the project set to USD, I'm not getting any right number here. So the next step will be showing Excel with XY expectation. So we can see here the scenarios we just saw with the indirect. These two first charts are with the ITWO, and the last two are the HY expectation. So I'm gonna start explaining this, which is the first case we had where the first line item was giving me the right number here, and the second one, the one that has USD, was not. So what we'll expect is this one. So zero allowance over here, the cost being exactly the same as the total amount in both cases, both line items, and these two as a result the same too. And then when we add the indirect on the project, the 10%, we had these two unit of rate correct, but we still have an issue with the second one, line items. And for this case, when we add the 10% of indirect, we will need to have exactly the 10% over here. Let's go back to the document. So the next step will be the conclusions. In the conclusions, I have listed here what I think will sum up what we just saw in the video. First of all, I couldn't find any combination setting where cost column is correct. It seems like it's always using 8 decimals behind the scenes. So if I go back here, the chart, we can see that the cost is always wrong, and I couldn't find any combination between the places I just told you. I'm aware we can change it in a way this column will get affected, because every time I change something, the only column it will be affected will be the total amount. Second one is total amount is showing correct values if we don't use any USD cost in the line item, something that we will need. Yeah, let me go to the ITWO. So this line item, it doesn't have any USD, and it's giving me the right numbers. And I have tried with projects with more line items, and all the line items that doesn't have any USD cost, like this one. This already has a commodity in the USD. All the line items that just have MXN, are giving me the right number. So that's what I'm thinking. It might be because of the rounding. We might be able to use total amount column as direct job cost, but we will lose track of the setting indirect. Yeah, as I just explained here, when we set the indirect, we are losing, because we could use this as a total job cost here, but when we set the indirect, we lost this, so we don't know the exact cost of the project. I managed to get reports working if line items values are correct in the estimate. Yeah, it's the change I mentioned I did on the reports that force these items to match what we have on the estimate. So it doesn't necessarily is the sum of this, it matches here. If a line item has any USD cost, it will be not show occurring the total amount. Yeah, it's the one that I just explained here. Is if it has something in USD, this number will be wrong. Project and USD are not showing any correct value. Yeah, what we saw here is that neither of these two columns are giving me the right number, even in line items that just have MXN values. And I believe it's because of these assemblies being converted to USD. And finally, the suggested solution will be have an expert in rounding take a look of the ITWO, the configuration we already have, and set them in a way we can meet our needs, which I just explained in the video. have a different column that show exactly the same values of total amount but keep it without the allowance, so we could rename it using a direct job cost. Yeah, it's something I mentioned to Dan sometimes. Like, this is the closest thing for the here. This is the closest thing to the values we're expecting for. So if we could just clone this column in another column and just rename it to direct job cost in a way that when we set the indirect, it will not be overridden. We could use it at the cost. That will be another solution. That will be everything I needed to explain to you, and hopefully by this time you would have understood how the indirect is affecting HYA needs.